Fernando, this is your second fight working the corner for Gabriel Rosado. He's taking on Antonio Gutierrez. How has training camp been going for you two?
Great, man. Gabe does everything I tell him to do. That's one of the conditions that I told him when he first called me to work his corner against Joshua Clottey. I told him that I'm a no BS type of trainer. You know what I mean? Because when I trained, I'd give everything. I never told my trainer Garcia. I never told my jefe, oh, hoy no voy a hacer eso. Oh, I'm not gonna do that today. I'm only gonna do this many rounds. No, the trainer is the boss, and that's the way it goes. And he did everything I told him to do, and he continues to do it. And I think you're going to see an explosive, Gabriel Rosado this weekend.
What has been the biggest change, the biggest improvement in Gabriel Rosado's game since he's came to you?
Well, people are going to see more as, he has a beautiful boxing ability. He has a great jab. People don't really see him do that because he's a warrior. I mean, you've seen him in the fights with Triple G, you've seen him in the fights with Lemieux, where he's a warrior. He's all busted up and he's going forward, and really he doesn't need to do that because he's such an intelligent fighter. You know what I mean? And I bring that and I'm bringing that out of him. You know what I mean? He's looking great. He's been looking great in camp and in the sparrings, and he only getting better. So, everybody don't know that, Gabe started boxing when he was 17. He only had a few amateur fights and then turned pro. So he's really an overachiever, you know what I mean, because of the stuff that he's been able to do, with so little experience.
Do you see some of him or some of you in him? I mean, you became a world champion very young. You were an Olympian at 17 years old. You also started off, you went through everything in boxing at a very young age.
Well, I see that warrior in him, and I know that, I don't need a question if he needs to dig deep because I know he got it. I know that's him. That's in his DNA. You can't teach that. You can't teach somebody to be a warrior. You can't teach somebody to be, brave and not be scared and to be tough. You can't teach that. You know what I mean? You're either born with it or you're not. So, I see a lot of me and him, but, I also know that, when he starts, we're sparring and he gets hit with a shot, he wants to go after this guy crazy to go get him back, you know what I mean? And so I understand that because, that's how I used to be, but I tell him you need to be intelligent, you need to be a boxer puncher because you're such an intelligent fighter. People don't see that, but you guys are going to be able to see a little bit of that in this fight, and hopefully, we get a bigger one in the next horizon.
His opponent is Antonio Gutierrez. When you see his opponent, how do you break him down? What do you see in his game?
He's a basic Mexican fighter that just goes forward and he's slow. He's, he's not somebody that you're going to say, whoa, you know what I mean? So, he's an opponent and, but any opponent is dangerous. There's no opponent that's small, that's easy. So you got to be ready for everybody and we're ready.
A question I want to ask you that's going around the story in boxing is the social media war between Conor McGregor and your Olympic teammate, Floyd Mayweather Jr. What are your thoughts on if that fight were to happen?
Look, let me tell you something. Very few MMA guys know how to stand up, which is called boxing, know how to throw their hands. You're talking about fighting the best fighter of our generation, that's been in there with the best of them, the best boxers, the best brawlers, the best fighters that have been fighting the whole life. Now you're going to fight somebody that, barely will do a professional fight, with gloves, just gloves. It's not going to happen. Well, it'll be an easy fight for Floyd. Floyd's no joke. Floyd's on a different level. Floyd is, like I said, this best fighter of this generation, and he's beat everybody. How are you going to beat perfection?
They said that Conor went to Freddie Roach, or Floyd went to Freddie Roach asking if he would train him. If Conor McGregor went to you and said, train me for this fight, what would you tell him?
Yeah, of course. I'm a trainer. This is what I do. Absolutely, I'll take it. I'll take the job. But, just know we're up against a task that is, is very, very, if not difficult, impossible. But, of course, anything can happen in boxing, but, the chances are that he's going to lose. But, You know, could he give him a fight? We don't know.
Right now, the task at hand is June 4th for you and Gabe Rosado. Fernando, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.